and thank the Mi'kmaq people of today for all their assistance and help to our ancestors, whether they came 400 years ago or 4 years ago. We are all treaty people. Okay, now we move on to, are there any emergency resolution to approve the agenda? Kept up the tradition anyway. Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Now we have the minutes. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ron.
Thank you, Warden. Just a question, and I don't know where to bring this up, so I'm bringing it up with the agenda. But on our pre-agenda, there was 3 places for dangers unsightly, and it was to be determined. And I know the reason why. We're waiting for the title search from our solicitor. My question is how long have they been in with the solicitor? Can anybody answer that? And the second question is I know we talked one night about getting somebody local, especially to do title searches and stuff. Just wondering where that is at.
Okay, I'll let our CAO answer those. Harvey?
I can speak to the title searches.
Sorry.
The
Okay.
title searches have been in for about 6 months now. When we originally started talking about this, it's been about 6 months.
Too long.
That's hardly acceptable,
No, way too
for
long.
what we're paying.
And I think that's generally agreed around this table for sure. But the other question on as to how we're coming along with a local solicitor, I think was your other question, Councillor Bailey?
Yeah, that was just how have we got any bites on that, or where's it at in the process, I guess?
You take that one, Brian?
Sure. So on title searches, we haven't advanced that because that was tied to the next tax sale process.
Oh, yeah.
So that's where that was tied to. So we haven't advanced on that side of it. We have advanced on bylaw side of it, prosecution. So we have moved that forward and have quasi-local on that type thing. So I can check on the status of those 3 specifically,
Yeah, that'd be great.
try and
Thank
push
you.
them up.
Okay, and now I'll ask if there's any errors or omissions, corrections to the minutes of March the 2nd. Errors, omissions, corrections to those minutes. One last time, any errors, omissions, corrections to the March 2nd minutes? Okay, I'll declare those approved as presented. Now, we have some pieces of correspondence. A letter from the Nova Scotia County of Antigonish in support of the Antigonish Coalition to End Poverty. I think that, yeah, the next ones were a letter from the municipality of Digby. I thought they had the wrong one. In support of the Antigonish Coalition to End Poverty. And a letter from Peggy Simpkin regarding the EA approval of Salt Springs and Marshdale natural gas plant proposals. Are there any questions or comments on any of those pieces of correspondence? Any questions or comments on any of those pieces? Oh, I got mine on.
Thank you, Warden. Just wanted that first letter from Nova Scotia Public Works regarding the J-class roads. You know, it's pretty sad. This 3 years in a row now that the roads that we submitted in haven't been approved by the province to cost share them. If anybody's out in my area, if you want to drive Greenwood Street, you'll see a road that should have been paved 10 years ago or more. So it's just, I don't know. I know they say there's only $1 million in that fund, but we haven't received, I don't think the Northern District has received anything in the last 3 years. If they're only getting $1 million, they should up that fund in order to get some of these roads done. So I know some of the other areas like down Western District and that, they seem to be using that fund. They seem to get approvals every year for that fund. So, You know, it's just disheartening to see that. The residents aren't going to be very happy, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A letter here from Peggy Simpkin here to do with the natural gas plants they're going to set up in Salt Springs, or they're wanting to set up in Salt Springs and Marisdale, which there's a great deal of opposition to, as you're aware. I believe she raises many good points in her letter to council. One I'm going to highlight right near the end here, and I think it's there's a number that are really important, but this one jumps out at me because I brought it up at the March 4th meeting here with IESO, and it's the push for an alternative industrial site cost analysis to be done presented formally, not just verbally. That night he presented verbally that he would get back to me on that. Jimmy Johnston, maybe, or Johnny Johnston or something, whatever the CEO's name was. And I haven't heard back. So that's an important issue, and I think we got to keep that in mind. But I think there's a lot of really good, important points in her letter here, and she's with us here tonight, and she's well respected, and I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion that I will be bringing before council in the future to do with some of these issues, but not tonight. So are there any further comments on those? Oh, wait, now I should be looking on here. Deputy Warden Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Also on Peggy Simpson's letter, she has a lot of things there that we discussed. When we have an application for a development permit, so I'd like to see that letter discussed at that time. Everything in there is mentioned that we've talked about around the table, but I'd like to see that letter when we do the development permit. Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Wadden, I'll look at my screen more.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to go over again the letter from the Pictou Regional Library and the way they're trying to accommodate the cuts this year from the provincial government. I think it's really important to note that they're going to lower the salary line by attrition. They're not going to replace people. The Adopt the Library program, which was always just an honorarium to Mr. Kennedy, is going to continue because he's going to volunteer his hours, which I think is a great credit to Mr. Kennedy for trying to do that to save that program. Excuse me. And then the board generated income will increase from 3% to 10% of the operating budget, which is $140,000, which is a lot more money for the board to fundraise for, but we have a great committee working on that, and they're working very hard to try and raise those funds for our library. They're not requesting a municipal grant increase this year, and I think that's a really good show of support for the work that has been done by the municipal councils in our areas. Closing Sundays in Antigonish and New Glasgow is a huge loss to all our patrons at the library. So I just want people to keep that in mind when we go forward this year with the libraries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments, and it's not easy for the library when the minimum wage goes up. They're told to pay it, but there's no extra money to pay it with. And the only way to do that then is by cutting something. So thank you for the update, Councillor Wadden. Any further comments on the correspondences there? Okay, seeing none, we'll move right along to the presentation of a petition on behalf of Viola's Place. And Ruby Rudolph is going to read that petition and give us a few comments on what it's about. Go ahead, Ruby.
Thank you.
Yes, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to present the petition. I'd like to read it now. Based on Psalm 12, 5, 7, and 8. Because the poor are plundered and the needy groan, I will now arise, says the Lord. I will protect them from those who malign them. You, Lord, will keep the needy safe and will protect us forever from the wicked, who freely strut about when what is vile is honored by the human race. This petition is to the 6 municipal governments and the provincial government. We, the undersigned, a local group of concerned citizens, urgently request the 6 municipal governments and the provincial government to ensure the continued operation of Viola's Place, 189 Marsh Street, New Glasgow, Nova Scotia, in support to the unhoused. This support could include housing, meals, education, medical, and financial. With the petition, I just have a little background information to support our petition and show where we fit in the neighborhood canvassing report. Maybe a number of you have already seen it online, seen the graph. The canvassers go downtown New Glasgow and interview individuals and businesses, roughly 100 people each time, and it's ongoing. The one I'll include is just a recent one. So if you can see, the small green portion represents 8%, and that's the expressed frustration and concern against Viola's Place. The neutral, the orange, represents 52%, and that's expressed that the community challenges are not the result of Viola's Place, but rather broader systemic gaps. For example, affordable housing shortages, mental health supports, addiction treatment and recovery services. So that's the neutral in the orange. The blue represents 40%, and that's the positive. Express support for Viola's Place and has no concerns at this time. So our petition would be included, the signatures, in the orange and the blue, which you'll see is 92%. So a number of the signatures are from people who know friends or family that have benefited from the services that Viola has offered. And a number of us also have supported with tangible things up to this point as well. And we're just looking for awareness and for some positive for the staff and the services to continue, because at this time, most of us have heard some of the negative, and it's hard to continue with that, but the tide is changing, and people are seeing that it's not only Viola's Place that we can bundle this all up and put it as their responsibility. The addiction services that are needed and the help for mental health, they're extreme as well. So we have more or less 3 problems, and there's no us and them. We're all in this together, and we just thank you for your interest tonight, and that individually and as a governing group, you can promote the good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ruby. I want to, just to leave it there, one of the staff will pick it up. I want to acknowledge a few other people in the room that are here supporting you tonight, Ruby. Ruby's husband, Floyd, is off in the corner, and I know he's worked hard with Ruby on this petition, and as have others. And Brian Bowden and Brenda, his wife, on the other side of the flag, have worked hard in the petition in other areas. And Brian, of course, was one of the founding members of Viola's Place back in, was it 16 or 17? I forget the exact year.
It was 16.
16. And of course, things have changed a lot since then.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more onus has been put on Viola's Place by the provincial government, help us do this and help us do that. And
Yeah.
certainly the money came with it, but it also put a lot more pressure on the people that work there and try and help people. And I did want to mention that a young lady not too far from home, actually in Donny's District 7, lost her life in Glasgow just recently. who was staying at Viola's place, and they were helping her. But sometimes it takes more help than what we can give. And, you know, she was just a local girl, went to school in Salt Springs and everything. And sometimes it's felt that all the people at Viola's place come in on a bus from somewhere else, and they don't. They're our own people for the most part. I think that's been showed over and over. 85, 90% or more are our own people here from Pictou County. So thank you again for delivering that petition to us, Ruby.
Thank you for the time.
Okay, now, move right along. So we have a presentation by Matt Russell from the Atlantic Salmon Federation on concerns about the proposed natural gas plants. Welcome, Matt. And,
Thank you. All right, perfect. I wasn't sure how this mic would work too. Yeah, I'd just like to start with expressing my gratitude for you all welcoming me in here and allowing me to talk a little bit about salmon and the risks and threats that are associated with these proposed power plants. So I'm just going to start just to give a little bit of background information about what the Atlantic Salmon Federation is, as well as who I am. So the Atlantic Salmon Federation is an environmental non-governmental organization founded in 1948. We're a world-leading science and advocacy organization. We're internationally focused, so we operate anywhere that Atlantic salmon operate in North America. So currently that is Maine to Greenland. And we have a head office in St. Andrews, New Brunswick, as well as a regional office in Halifax, which is where I'm based out of. And we work with a federation family, is how we like to speak about it. So that means we cooperate and have agreements with academia, the Canadian government, the United States government, Indigenous groups, as well as over 100 affiliate organizations and 5 regional councils. So you might be familiar with the Nova Scotia Salmon Association. That's our regional council for Nova Scotia. And more closely to home would be the Pictou County Rivers Association, is our regional affiliate in the area. And I'll just speak just quickly to give a bit of a background about me. I'm the director of Nova Scotia programs for the Atlantic Salmon Federation. I'm based in Halifax, but I am from Stellarton, and up until last year I lived there, excluding a couple periods of going to university. So I have a bachelor's in public policy and governance from St. Francis Xavier, and a master's of marine resource management from the University Center of the West Fjords in Iceland. Pictured there is me this fall, October 28th, I believe, with a salmon that I caught in the East River. It's relatively small, but it wasn't a great season. So what's proposed here, as I'm sure you're all aware, but just to give a quick insight, is the 2 fast-acting natural gas power generation facilities, one in the Marshdale area, one in the Salt Springs area. So for the Marshdale facility, as I'm sure once again you're all aware, and we'll just kind of go quickly, it's located at the intersection of White Hill and Culloden Road. It's draining into Cameron Brook and ultimately the west branch of the East River, merging at Iona Park. If you're familiar with it, it's a popular recreational area as well as a salmon angling area. So water usage, when averaged out across a year span, is 330,000 liters daily, equal to 750 rural homes, and that's when it operates at 20% capacity. When it's at full capacity, we're looking at roughly 4.2 million liters of water intake from the aquifers daily and 1.2 million liters of effluent reintroduced into the system each day. In the Marshdale area, we have a bit of a localized data gap that unfortunately we don't have a whole lot of background information regarding Cameron Brook, as well as that section of Headwater Marsh. What we do know is that it is an active Atlantic salmon habitat. It consistently demonstrates significant spawning every year. In 2021, it was electrofished and found a very high density of juvenile Atlantic salmon, so that's par and fry when they're in their young riverine stage. The Salt Springs facility is an identical facility, but where the situation is different here is that we do not have a data gap in the area. We actually have a large magnitude of historical data in the area, and that we can say undoubtedly that there's a direct impact to wild Atlantic salmon in this section. The question isn't, is there an impact? It's to what level the impact will be and how we can mitigate that. So for just a little bit more background regarding Atlantic salmon, because I recognize not everyone's up to date on it all the time. So the Atlantic salmon life cycle is that they're born in freshwater tributaries, generally not the main river, but small brooks that flow into it. They're born in relatively shallow water. In the fall, as the salmon come up, their eggs survive through the winter, and they hatch around now, where they're in an alvin stage is what it's called. They'll spend anywhere from 2 to 6 years living in the river, getting slightly larger and larger until they're ready to migrate to sea. When they migrate to sea, they'll generally spend 1 to 3 winters at sea before returning to the exact same tributary at about a 90% accuracy that they were born in. And that's why it's really important that certain areas are protected if they have high densities of spawning salmon, because that area, if it is destroyed, result in a massive reduction in regional and localized salmon populations. So the historic range of Atlantic salmon is from Connecticut to northern Maine, specifically in Gala Bay, which is the northern Quebec, in Gala Bay, which is the northernmost tip of Quebec, just below Rankin Island and Nunavut. So the modern healthy range is actually northern Nova Scotia to Quebec. Northern Nova Scotia is the southern extent of the healthy range of Atlantic salmon. So the North Shore of Nova Scotia is the last stronghold of Atlantic salmon in Nova Scotia. There's 297 rivers roughly in Nova Scotia. At one point, every single river hosted a sizable and healthy Atlantic salmon population. The number now is maybe 24, with them entirely, excluding the St. Mary's River, entirely being on the northern portion of Nova Scotia and flowing into the Gulf of St. Lawrence. So the rivers from Tidnish, the New Brunswick border, all the way to about Meat Cove are the overwhelming majority of Atlantic salmon in Nova Scotia. Specifically, Pictou County is home to quite a significant and sizable healthy Atlantic salmon population. The photo you see there is actually a quite large Atlantic salmon caught a few years ago in the East River just above Stellarton. The East River is renowned in the Atlantic salmon angling community for having some of the most consistent, large, extremely sizable Atlantic salmon, and a very low grilse population, which is fish that spend 1 year at sea. So most fish in the East River spend 2 to 3 years at sea before returning, which makes them quite a prize and successful spawners for anglers. So the other thing with Atlantic salmon is that they're an indicator species. So Atlantic salmon are very, they struggle when the ecosystem changes, and you can notice subtle changes in the ecosystem and the quality of the ecosystem in the Atlantic salmon populations. So there's nowhere on Earth in an unhealthy ecosystem that Atlantic salmon live. That's why their range has been so reduced, and we're fortunate that in Pictou County we still have a healthy ecosystem to some extent that allows for a salmon population. So as long as there's salmon in the rivers, it means that the rivers are healthy. It means the forests surrounding the rivers are healthy, and the sea and the estuary around it are healthy, which is a really good sign. Especially in a world where that's becoming increasingly less common. So now I'm going to speak a little bit about the ecological importance of Salt Springs specifically. That photo is not of Salt Springs, but it is of a healthy Atlantic salmon river. So 8 and 6 mile brooks are very healthy and high quality Atlantic salmon habitat. These are the 2 brooks that are just above the ISO's proposed facility in Salt Springs. So these were identified as 2 extremely high value and high productivity Atlantic salmon rearing habitats. So in 2022, CMM, which is the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq, conducted a study throughout Pictou County to determine areas that had the highest significance and the most important areas for protection for conserving Atlantic salmon populations. And from that study, they found that 8 and 6 mile brooks consistently demonstrated extremely high quality, clean, cold water, which is really core to Atlantic salmon. Atlantic salmon require cold water as water temperatures exceed about 20 degrees, which is quite common. You start to experience mortality at about 27 degrees. For sustained time, you'll experience quite high mortality, sometimes as high as 70–80%. And that's consistent in Pictou County in West River, East River, Middle River, which does not currently have an Atlantic salmon population due to a series of factors, but most notably the dam at the mouth of the river. But in the West River and East River, in the main stems, you consistently see temperatures in the mid-20s, even as high as 30 degrees during the summertime. But in certain tributaries, you notice that the water temperature consistently stays cold. So in 8 and 6 mile brooks, which is where this facility is proposed to be located, you actually see consistent temperatures around 14 to 18 degrees in the summer, which results in a massive portion of the entire river's Atlantic salmon, juvenile Atlantic salmon, migrating to these areas to withstand these hot temperatures. So when temperatures are really high in the middle of the summer, the majority of the fish in the river that survive will all go to these cold water refuges, is what they're referred to. And to our understanding, 6 and 8 Mile Brook are the largest cold water refuge in that system. So in the summertime, you would have thousands, potentially tens of thousands of juvenile Atlantic salmon moving into this section, and that is really the safeguard of the population during the summer. So for that reason, it's extremely important that we protect that. Both systems see consistent spawning and have very high densities of par and fry, as I stated. So this is where the threats are associated that come into it. So we know that there will be direct threats to Atlantic salmon if these proposals go through. As I said before, it's not a question of if, it's a question of how much. So the first is the loss or degradation of cold water refuge habitat. So as I mentioned before, that water is nice and cold, and it keeps the salmon healthy, and it allows them to withstand those hot days. The reason it's cold is because it's groundwater upwelling. So you have the large aquifers in that area that are seeping into the river and consistently keeping the river cold. It has very good cover from a lot of healthy riparian forests surrounding the river. What can happen, though, is if this facility is to come through and is introducing at maximum productivity 1.2 million liters of treated effluent, which is warmer than the cold water refuge, that mixes with the cold water and quickly degrades the temperature. So as the water comes out of these facilities and is treated, it'll go into tailing ponds, where it'll be set to reach ambient temperatures, which in the summertime, ambient temperatures of a tailing pond in this area are likely around 30 to 33, 34 degrees, because the water is not moving. It will get to whatever temperature sitting water gets, and then it'll be released. But what we have to remember is that in these brooks and tributaries, we're not dealing with sitting water. We're dealing with water that's recently upwelling from ground, just like how your well water is always cold, or at least colder than a puddle in your yard. That will have the potential to reduce the temperature, or to increase temperature, and at every degree we see an increase in temperature, we'll see a decrease in salmon populations. And then with that is the potential creation of thermal barriers. So even though high up in 8 Mile Brook, it might still stay cold because it's too far away from the facility. What can happen is, because the facility is located downstream, it has the potential to create what's called a thermal barrier, which effectively works as a dam. If the mouth of the tributary is warm, fish moving upstream have no understanding that there's cold, healthy habitat above it. So for them, there's no reason to go up. The fish will then have to continue moving throughout the system, trying to find cold water elsewhere, which the 2022 study from the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq suggests is very rare and hard to come by. When there's overcrowding in areas of cold water refuge, there's the potential for effective suffocation of the salmon and trout species, as there's too much demand on the dissolved oxygen levels. And there's also the aspect with the cold water that, by the intense demand that's being placed on these aquifers from these facilities, that it can actually reduce the amount of water introducing into the stream. So not only does it reduce the cold water introducing into the stream, it reduces all of it. These streams struggled extremely last year in the droughts that all streams struggled from, but because of the reduced water, and these are relatively small streams that punch way above their weight in habitat, the habitat throughout the streams became
Yeah, I'll have to interrupt you.
Yeah.
We need to close up soon.
Yeah.
I should have warned you ahead of time. We
We're
only
good.
have 10 minutes and I
We're good.
forgot. But if you're near there, that's good, and then we'll open it up for questions. There's
Yep.
no limit on that time.
That works. I'll just get to the last part here. So the next steps on our end is gathering data. So we've partnered with local partners, Pictou Rivers Association, to install temperature sensors in the areas, conduct regular water quality monitoring, as well as e-fishing throughout the system, so we can get a number exactly of how healthy it is, how many fish there are, and then habitat suitability assessments, which would tell us on a score effectively out of 100 how healthy it is. So if these facilities do go through, that we can mark that in year X, Y, Z, we've seen a decrease in 10%, 1%, to whatever extent that is. And that's it.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah, we'll open it up for questions at this time. For Matt, are there questions from councilors? Councilor Donnie Parker? Oh, sorry. There, Councilor Turner, you were first. You have to look at the screen again. Go ahead, Councilor Turner.
Thank you, Warden. Thank you for your presentation. I like when there's science involved with this rather than just people having opinions with no scientific background. My question is, though, I live on the East River, and you say that the East River is one of the healthy salmon habitats, in particular specifically in Pictou County. And you also talked about a thermal barrier. I live basically across the river from the Nova Scotia Power electricity generating plant. There's a tremendous amount of heat in the water there. So how does those two things come together where you have a really healthy salmon population in the East River and you have a tremendous amount of hot water going into the East River? And you talk about a thermal barrier. Why does the thermal barrier not impede the population of salmon in the East River?
So what I would say with that is the thermal barrier does. The East River is healthier, is what we would say. It's performing at probably 5% of what it would have 200 years ago. But in modern standards, that's considered pretty good. And that comes with that, like I said before, if you have, let's say a river has 100 tributaries, in that hot summertime, there's probably 10 to 12 tributaries that are actually accounting for the overwhelming majority of the habitat being used. So you can have areas that are horrible habitat in one section, but the fish don't use every section. So what the point of this is that there's really core areas of each river that are the basis of the populations that we observe. It's the potential that Cameron Brook might be one like that, but that's a hypothesis because of the groundwater upwelling, but we don't have the data on it right now, and we're hoping to have it soon. But yeah, like it's just because one area is hot doesn't mean it's all hot, and just because one area is cold doesn't mean it's all cold. There are barriers that occur, but generally fish have their, salmon at least, have their natural homing, that if they were born in an area, it's probably a healthy area, and they'll keep going back to that, and the areas that they weren't born, they won't go to.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, next, Councilor Donnie Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation, Matt. Yeah, it's nice that it's science-based. I agree with that. I had a couple of questions. There's about 50,000 liters of effluent going to come out of that every hour out of that plant, Salt Springs or Marisdale. But the one in Salt Springs, if there's that much effluent coming out when it's running at full speed, we'll say, is that water, once it goes into the ground, is it going to get cooled down enough before it gets to the 6 Mile Brook? Is the temperature going to get down to the 6 Mile Brook temperature?
Yeah. So with that, there's still a lot of speculation as we don't have a direct plan on how every aspect of it's going to work. To my understanding, we haven't been informed at what temperature the water will be leaving the facility at and entering the tailing ponds. If someone knows, I don't. But presumably, if we're losing 70% to evaporation, that would suggest that it's quite high. What I'll say is it's very unlikely that you can form any natural cooling system that would reduce the temperatures to reach that of the cold water naturally upwelling in 6 and 8 Mile brooks. Like I said before, you might be able to reach, and I believe the environmental assessment that the IESO is pushing states that it'll reach ambient temperatures, and that would be ambient temperatures of sitting water in the area. So as cool as it will naturally get from sitting there. As I'm sure you're all aware, generally your pool is warmer than a river, and specifically an area that you have upwelling. I can't see any scenario without a refrigeration unit of some sort being able to reduce the water temperature to an extent that it would reach that of the 16, 18 degrees you're seeing in 8 Mile Brook and 6 Mile
Okay,
Brook.
thank you. I have another question, Mr. Chair, there. The warmer water, will it kill the salmon eggs, I guess, when the 6 Mile Brook?
Yes, so that's another aspect that I was intending on touching on, but I went a little over time there. One thing that can happen, and just quickly, is a lot of people have said, well, a lot of the time that this will operate, if it operates at 20%, is the winter, so we don't need to be so concerned about hot water. But the area directly downstream of, at least in, well, actually we can say in both facilities, is a spawning area. So there's deposited eggs in the river. They're in the substratum, the gravel. Those are very, very temperature dependent. So small changes in temperature, as much as 3-4 degrees, can effectively wipe out the egg populations. So what can happen is if the facility turns on and we're introducing warm water, maybe it's still 30 or even 15 degrees. Well, that water temperature is normally 1 to 5 degrees in the winter. As soon as we see that increase, we could see just effectively a blitzing of the, or a shocking, almost like in a pool, of all the salmon eggs, or even juvenile salmon swimming through it, would just die, as they're a cold water species. They can't regulate their own temperature, or a cold-blooded species, sorry. They can't regulate their own temperatures.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned over in Eureka there, and you did a presentation, that the West River in particular is one of the worst spots to put one of these plants. Why is that? Just for what you just stated here, I suppose, is it?
Yes, as far as Atlantic salmon go, in Nova Scotia, that is, you would struggle to find a site that would be more dangerous and reckless to install a system like this than the Salt Springs area. As well, that could very well be the case for the Marshdale facility. The only situation there is that, like I said, it's a bit of a data gap that we're rushing to try to catch up on the data, but unfortunately we need summer conditions to really understand that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Councillor Boyles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for coming. It's sort of a follow-up to Councillor Turner's questions there. You said about the East River and the Nova Scotia Power there, right? Are you familiar with Dr. Sylvia St. Jean's reports?
No.
Okay, well, she's got reports out that says in the East River around there that there's deleria and malaria in the water because of the Nova Scotia and the pollution going in there. Plus, there's a fish called a pogue that's in there that's deformed because of the pollution coming out of that place. So you guys, you said you were in since 1948 or something?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, and I just wonder, like, we for years we've been fighting about this, and we had the Rivers Association involved, that's for sure, but we never ever heard of the Salmon Association, right?
Yes. So what I'll say directly on the last aspect there, because first of all, there are a lot of threats, and this isn't the only threat to Atlantic salmon or to our river's health. And like I said earlier, the East River is one of the healthier rivers in the province, and that doesn't mean that it's inherently super healthy. It just is more of an indictment on the degradation of most rivers. And secondly, on the aspect of ASF's elements there, is that while we were founded in 1948, that was in Montreal and in New Brunswick. We've, in the last 30 years, really expanded our range. And we've created now, in the last decade or so, these regional program directors, which is what I am for Nova Scotia. There's a lot of issues, and as I said, there's 297 rivers in Nova Scotia alone. Nova Scotia actually has more stream crossings, areas where roads or culverts cross a river, than any other province in Canada, even though we're pretty small. Those are threats to Atlantic salmon. So my point is that there's a lot of issues in a lot of areas, and what ends up happening often, due to our relatively low capacity, is if the person in my position is from the area, they're very gung-ho about that location, but we only have so much capacity. I'm from here, and Unfortunately, the range of Atlantic salmon has decreased so much, especially in the last 20 years or so, that now every issue in this area has become a major issue.
Just one more, if
Yeah.
I can. I was just wondering, what we ran into when we were after them was the difference between provincial and federal.
Yeah.
Like, man, oh man, they would say, oh no, that's not ours, that's provincial. Oh, no, that's not ours, it's federal. Do you run into that same sort of?
Yes, and what I would say with that is, and one of the core elements here, and why I'm kind of pushing this salmon piece here, is not only just because I care so much about salmon, and as so do a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people come to Pictou County to fish every fall. Is that salmon are a federally regulated species. So obviously, with this whole system, it's being pushed through mostly provincially. Salmon is a federal aspect, and that's where our correspondence on this is more federal. It gets tricky because, yeah, rivers are generally managed provincially, and the land on the sides of every river is provincial, but the water's federal if it's a salmon river, and yeah, it makes a challenge.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and Councilor Jordan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warden. Thank you, Matthew, for coming here tonight. The more times I hear you speak, the more I learn. In Eureka the other night, you had a nice crowd there as well, and said a lot of important things, and I picked up on a few things here tonight too, and I was very pleased that you came up with the name Cameron Brook, because that's what it is. And up in our country, it's just the same as in Donny's area. Marshdale, the water runs out of that area, down Cameron Brook, to Iona Park, into the west branch of the East River, through Hopewell, down Eureka, to the town of Stellarton. It's really, and it has been since a number of years now, it's the Stellarton watershed. So are people thinking about the Stellarton watershed at all when we got 9 million liters of diesel fuel going to be somewhere? It's diesel fuel, salmon. There's all the things that nobody's talking about, or you're talking about it, and we're talking about it here, and the people that are interested are going to the meetings. But do they realize what can really happen if something goes wrong? And that's the thing we got to keep remembering. And I'm pleased with what you're doing, and I'm going to do nothing more than wish you good luck and keep at it, because if what you're doing gets to the right desk, and that right desk is our MP to find out about this environmental study. And if this environmental study, federal, is done right, it's going to be looked after. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Okay, is there any further, or who do we have? Randy? Go ahead, Councilor Palmer.
Thank you, Warden. And yes, thank you very much, Matt, for coming tonight. Just wondering, have you, or are you going to present to the IESO?
Yes, what I'll say with that is I have been in correspondence with the IESO since early January. With that, I will note that I took a career change, so I've only actually been in this position for about a month and a half now. Prior to that, I was working in Indigenous conservation, doing salmon as well. So from that perspective, I was arguing it, and now from a new. But it's the same core issue to me is the Atlantic salmon concern. You know, as a person from Pictou County, I have a lot of other concerns as well. But professionally and as an ecologist, it's salmon that's concerning me. I initially was corresponding with them consistently. I will go tomorrow to talk to them. I had written a series of letters to everyone you can think of. It's my perception and my experience that those have fell on deaf ears. I've made my points very clear. Everything I've said tonight has been said to them, whether they admit it or not. And I have been now waiting for a response that I was promised about 2 months ago in January 17th. I was promised a response to all these concerns. And after continuous badgering, I've still yet to receive anything. So what I would say is yes, but I personally don't see that as being really worth my time at this point.
Yeah, it would be nice if they'd seen the same presentations we had, because we hear all the concerns and things like that, but those are the ones that are, they're going to make the decisions and things like that, so.
Yeah.
And then it'll come to us and for permit and things like that, so we can address things there, but until we get to that point, right? So, thank you very much.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? Matt Smith is here this evening. Don't see any hands and nobody's on my screen, so I'll just finish with a couple of comments of my own. You mentioned, Matt, about people coming to Pictou County to fish salmon. I can vouch for that because our farm is right on the West River, down lower than the 8 mile, 6 mile, and the 4 mile brooks. But if it's a fall when there's lots of water in the river, which sure wasn't last fall, we were down to a trickle, so there wasn't any salmon fishermen last fall until the last 2 days. We got a bit of rain, not enough, but we got a bit, so that brought out a few. But on a good day in October, sometimes there'll be upwards of 60, 70 cars parked from the churchyard in Durham up to the bridge in West River. 3, 4 here, 3 or 4 there, up down both sides of the roads on both sides of the river. So it does draw a lot of people. It's all catch and release, of course, but no, I think the indigenous have an indigenous fishery there where they can keep so many. You would be more aware of that than I am, but it does show that it's not just local people for entertainment. It's people coming because these are some of the few rivers that still have salmon, and they're coming from quite a distance to be able to fish salmon. And you know, that's all part of the tourism business. They stay here, they find a place to eat somewhere, maybe to stay overnight, so it all adds up after a while. So I think we have to remember the economic part of it too. And the other thing I'll say is often when I was a whole lot younger, used to go fishing with an old pole and a piece of twine on it. Yeah, a lot of times half the time what you pulled out of the brook was a salmon fry or whatever stage they were at, not a trout. You know, we were knew enough to know the trout had the spots on, the other had a different pattern. But so it showed there was a lot in those brooks. And the water was cold because at that time there's still snow and ice along the edges, so they liked that. But now I appreciate you coming here tonight and filling us in on what some of the possible dangers are, especially if we're getting down to where we got so few rivers that have salmon in them now. It's not a good idea to gamble with those that still have some. So again, thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Now, we'll get down to our business items not requiring action. There's none under that, so we'll move along quickly to the ones that do require action. The first one is resolution, Councillor Turner, on our MOPC rebranding.
Thank you, Warden. Resolution. Whereas the municipality of the County of Pictou has identified the need to rebrand the municipality with a focus on visual continuity, accessibility, and versatility, and whereas staff issued a request for proposals from qualified marketing companies to undertake this work, be it resolved that the municipality of the County of Pictou accept a proposal from New Brooklyn Media in the amount of $8,604 plus HST to work collaboratively with municipal staff and council to rebrand the municipality, including but not limited to print and electronic formats. Further be it resolved that the cost of this proposal be funded in the 2026-2027 fiscal year dated at Pictou, Nova Scotia on the 7th day of April 2026, signed by myself, Councillor Larry Turner, seconded by Councillor Peter Boyles.
So second.
Okay, been moved and seconded, the resolution for New Brooklyn Media to do some work for us to look into the proposal for rebranding. Any comments or questions on that resolution? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Now, the next one is a Recreation Capital Grant on Arm Wrestling Club, and Councillor Boyles, you're doing that one.
Be it resolved that the municipality of the county of Pictou approve a recreation capital grant in the amount of $1,000 from the 2025-2026 financial recreation capital budget to the Pictou County Arm Wrestling Club for the purchase of equipment, dated Pictou, Nova Scotia, on the 7th day of April 2026, signed by myself, Peter Boyles, and seconded by Councilor Larry Turner.
So seconded.
Okay, thank you. So you've heard the reading of that resolution for $1,000 from the Recreation Capital Grant to the Pictou County Arm Wrestling Club. And it's been duly moved and seconded. Any questions or comments on that resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Against? Motion carried. And the next one is from Councillor Donnie Parker to do with Creative Pictou County funding. Oh, sorry. Well, we'll back up one, then we'll put her in reverse. Councillor Palmer, the Watervale Area Recreation Center tax receipts.
Yeah, I thought it was next, but anyway. Thank you, Warden. Resolution. Whereas the municipality of the County of Pictou is registered with the Canada Revenue Agency as a qualified donor, and whereas the Income Tax Act permits qualified donors to issue official donation receipts for income tax purposes, and whereas the Watervale Area Recreation Center Association has requested that the municipality receive donated funds on its behalf and issue charitable tax receipts to eligible donors. Therefore, be resolved that council authorize the municipality of the County of Pictou to receive charitable donations on behalf of the Watervale Area Recreation Center Association and to issue official charitable tax receipts for donations in excess of $100. Dated Pictou, Nova Scotia, the 7th day of April 2026, moved by myself, Councillor Randy Palmer, and seconded by Councillor Joe McDonald. So seconded.
Okay, that was the reading of the Watervale Area Recreation Center, so we can issue tax receipts for them from the county here, and it's been duly moved and seconded. Is there any questions on that resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Now we'll move on to Donnie Parker with the Creative Pictou County funding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Resolution here. Be it resolved that the municipality of the County of Pictou approve a council grant in the amount of $1,000 to Creative Pictou to assist with its operations for the remainder of the 2026-2027 fiscal year. And further, be it resolved that this funding be allocated from the 2025-2026 grant program, dated at Pictou, Nova Scotia, on the 7th day of April 2026, signed by myself, Councillor Donnie Parker, and seconded by Councillor Ronald Bailey.
Second.
And in the second line of that resolution, that should read Creative Pictou County, not Creative Pictou. Just a word missing there, but it's an important word. So you've heard that resolution read to help out Creative Pictou County, and duly moved and seconded. Are there any questions on that resolution? Chester, go right ahead. No?
Next one.
Oh, okay, you're jumping the gun on me. Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Now we get to Councillor Dewar with the school graduation and bursaries.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Be it resolved by the municipality of the County of Pictou approve the following grants and bursaries to these local high schools. Northumberland Regional High School, $2,000 graduation and bursary. Nova Education Center, $2,000 graduation and bursary. Pictou Academy, $200 bursary. Tatamagouche Regional High School, $200 bursary, for a total of $4,400. Dated at Pictou NS on the 7th day of April 2026, signed by myself, Councillor Chester Dewar, and seconded by Councillor Andy Thompson.
So seconded.
Okay, you've heard the reading of our annual donations to our schools, large and small, for graduation bursary. and it's been duly moved and seconded. Are there any questions, statements on that resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. And now we have Councillor McKeel with a resolution on our committee appointments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warden. Be it resolved, the Municipal Council for the Municipality of the County of Pictou approve the following citizen appointments from April 1st, 2026 to March 31st, 2028. For the Audit Committee, there's 2 appointments, John Crothers and Susan Robson. For the Police Advisory, Kevin McDonald. For Riverton Guest Home Association, Bonnie Allen. Climate Change Advisory, Ed Kennedy. For the Accessibility Advisory Committee, Ray Gunn, Antonia Phillips, Susan Crow, and Alan Colley. For the Rural Broadband Governance Oversight Committee, John Crothers and David Muse. For the Hector Arena Commission, Blake Ferguson. And the Planning Advisory Committee, Lori McCullough. Dated the 7th day of April 2026 at Pictou, Nova Scotia, signed by myself, Councillor Darla McKeel, and seconded by Councillor Randy Palmer.
So seconded.
Okay, you've heard the reading of our resolution for our new appointments for the next 2 years, and it's been duly moved and seconded. Are there any questions or concerns on that resolution? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
And against? I just want to make a comment on this one. Certainly want to thank all the people that put their names forward. There's always, every time we have, you know, a call go out, it's amazing how many people in this county are willing to help us. And it's very important to have these people sit on our committees along with our councilors, because it brings certainly some different opinions. But at the same time, I want to thank all those that are leaving, because they've already done their job of helping us out on the various committees. So I think it's an important part of our democracy to have, you know, these folks from our county with all kinds of expertise sometimes, for sure, to help us out on these committees. So it's a big thank you to them. The next resolution then, if I'm not missing one, is the Governance Oversight Committee appointments. And that's Deputy Warden Murray, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Resolution, be it resolved, the municipality, the county of Pictou, approve the appointments of the elected officials to the Rural Broadband Governance Oversight Committee. Warden Robert Parker, Deputy Warden Wayne Murray, Councillor Ron Bailey, Councillor Larry Turner, and Councillor Deborah Wadden. Dated the 7th day of April 2026 in Pictou, Nova Scotia. I so move this resolution, and seconded by Councillor Palmer. So seconded.
Okay, you've heard the reading of the Governance Oversight Committee for our high-speed internet project, and the names there included. Duly moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments on that resolution? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. And the final resolution, Councillor Wadden on MOPC joins Michelin Cities.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Whereas the International Network of Michelin Cities has become a forum for knowledge exchange, cluster development, innovation, partnerships, and startup collaborations among 22 cities across Europe, North America, Japan, and Brazil, and whereas the network hosts biannual conferences and regular virtual meetings that provide opportunities to position Pictou County in targeted investment discussions and strategic conversations, and whereas the Pictou County Partnership has paid the membership fee for the network in recent years, however, as it is not a municipal government, this arrangement has created some confusion regarding representation for the community in which the Michelin facility is located. Therefore, be it resolved that the municipality of the County of Pictou pay the annual 1,500 euros membership fee and join the International Network of Michelin Cities for a minimum of 1 year to assess opportunities and develop relationships within the network. Dated Pictou, Nova Scotia on the 7th day of April 2026, signed by myself, Councillor Deborah Wadden, and seconded by Councillor Joe McDonald.
So seconded.
Okay, you've heard the reading of the resolution referring to the joining, our MOPC joining the International Network of Michelin Cities. Been duly moved and seconded. Are there any comments or questions on that resolution? Go ahead, Councillor Warden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I looked up today what the exchange rate would be, and it's $2,416.67 in Canadian money, just so people are aware of that. So thank you.
Okay, that's good to know, because I'm not sure most of us would know what the exchange rate was anyway. Okay, and so any other questions or concerns? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Against? One nay. Okay, thank you, Councillor Boyles. Moving on then to Councillor Boyles with the Hillside pumping station concerns. You want to take over for a minute?
Yeah, with the pumping station in Hillside, the money we're wasting is ungodly. It's just ridiculous. Thousands and thousands of dollars every storm going out for pumper trucks. Also, we're paying for stormwater that we shouldn't be paying for. I had a meeting with Logan and with Dan Fortune last week, and we went over a lot of the things that could be done to fix this. Now, this was passed at a budget one time. We had been sent out and asked who our top priorities were. Well, the Hillside pumping station got the most and got the. In fact, I think it was majority said that, it's got to be fixed and something done, but it's not being done. It's for some reason we're just paying money after money after money out and making these pumper trucks rich. That's all we're doing. There's things that's got to be done, like fix leaks, and they got to be doing some drawdown tests, and it could come to a thing where they need bigger pipes. The pipes are just, plus a flow data. Once they get this stuff done, they got to find out the flow data, and then maybe that's what it's going to take, the bigger pipes to do this. What we turn around and need is approval of this budget that this be done. Now, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars every storm for just water to be moved out of a pumping station, and we would surely have it fixed and want it fixed, because that's money that's going that could be put in other things in other capital budgets that could really do it. And I also maybe we could get Logan to speak a little on this, because we did have a meeting on what we were thinking should be done, and if we could.
Okay, go ahead, Logan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councillor Boyles, for bringing this up. As Councillor Boyles mentioned, we had met on Tuesday of last week to talk about concerns related to the Hillside sewage lift station. We have had capital improvements and studies completed over the past number of years. Since I arrived in 2021, we have seen a gradual decrease in pumping costs. We don't have those broken out exactly in terms of Hillside versus some of that, but overall what we see is that the trend is showing that pumping is going down. However, it remains something with ongoing requirements. So the year that I was here for that had the highest pumping requirements was the year that we had Hurricane Fiona, and of course we were without power for a long period of time. And then the second most, my first year here, and then also after that, the year that we had the big snowstorm and we were offline for some time. So in 2023, we had a report completed by WSP engineering consultants for our sewer system and how we could essentially make improvements upstream in the system to limit the overall inflow and infiltration coming into the system. Every sewer system has a certain amount of inflow and infiltration, referred to as I&I. Typically, you can account for between 10 and 20% of your flow being made up of by that. The most significant being improvements to our manholes. So the year after that study was completed, we had work approved to make improvements to the upstream manholes in the Hillside area. That work spanned 2 fiscal years, so it was completed last spring, and we believe that that's led to lower overall inflow and infiltration getting into the system. There do remain additional improvements that are recommended in the WSP report that we're looking forward to using upcoming capital money for to make those improvements. Excuse me. And those are primarily villages in low areas, and what we've done is gone in and raised those up and wrapped them with blue skin water protective membrane in order to tighten them up. Additional improvements. The next sort of key set of improvements are going to really be those related to issues in old connections from houses to the system that the report identified as having additional potential for leakage. And then we'll also be looking at improvements to our water meter chamber in the area, and also to some issues related to some private cracked piping in some residences. This type of testing is hard to determine illegal connections. You can connect them up to a point. We did smoke testing, which helped with that. But at the end of the day, there remain outstanding capital improvements that we need to make to this system. We've accounted for it in our upcoming capital budget and our 5-year capital budget that was approved at least in theory last year. So as Councillor Boyles mentioned, we will be requesting council approval for additional funds this year coming up. The way that we're trying to deal with this is tighten up the system upstream as much as possible, so that then when we make the improvements downstream, they're the most effective improvements possible. So those improvements ultimately, depending on what we find as we make these other upstream improvements that I just mentioned, as Councillor Boyles mentioned, could include upsizing of pumps. They could also include upsizing of the sewer force main in the area. It's currently 3-inch, so if we find, based on the pump curve information from what I just mentioned, that we can only force a certain amount of flow through, we would then look to potentially upsize that pipe as well. So all in, we believe that we've seen improvements over the past number of years with the improvements that we have been making, but there certainly still remain significant pumping requirements at that location, and we will be coming at capital budget time to look for additional funds to make those additional improvements. Final thing I wanted to note was that this council did approve the purchase of a mobile generator this past year, which we had sent out a request for quotes for and have approved. We expect that to come end of the summer, start of the fall, in time for hurricane season. So all in all, we're trying to make steps in the right direction. We think we've started those steps, and we'll be looking for council's approval coming up for additional improvements. Councillor Boyles, I'm not sure if that answers your questions or what you were looking to get from me, or answers that you were looking to get from me today.
Just on the stormwater too.
Sure, thank you. So, again, through you, Mr. Chair, as Councillor Boyles mentioned, we noticed that there is significant stormwater during these high-intensity storm events, and even not even the highest intensity storm events. That's clear water coming through, which suggests additional inflow and infiltration into the system. So again, what we're looking to do is cut down on that inflow and infiltration, so that what we're sending up through our lift station is, as much as possible, true sanitary sewer flow.
Okay?
You know, I know that Logan, them, you know, they're trying but it's got to be done. As to say that, you know, it's gotten better. It might have gotten better in some ways, but when you turn around and have a storm like that rainstorm we had there and the ice and that, there were 24/7 pumper trucks there pumping. And them guys are not cheap, and they were going steady, taking stuff out of there. So, I mean, this is taking money from the taxpayer, taking money from, you know, the council that that don't have to be. All that has to be done is fixed right, and let's get her done. And so that's what I'm asking you. So when the capital budget does come up, and this request is there, is that it's approved, because it's going to save us money in the long run. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And if the money is approved at capital budget time, when would that work be done?
So we have thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have a multi-phase approach. The first being to attack those lateral improvements that I mentioned, the potentially leaky laterals. There are about 18 of them that were identified in the WSP report. We expect that work could be completed within 2 months of receiving approval from council to do so. Additionally, the meter chamber improvements could be completed at the same time, and we may need some engineering support. It may or may not need it depending on what we find. So I would expect that, you know, if we end up looking at lift station improvements, such as new pumps and a new electrical panel to go with those pumps, those improvements I would expect could be completed in the fall and in the winter, including that if we end up needing enough size to that run of pipe that I mentioned, from a 3-inch to a larger diameter pipe, that should be able to be completed in the fall and winter as well. So it would all be within this capital year.
Within this capital year,
Yeah,
some of it this summer and some of it. Is there, anybody have any questions for Logan on this issue? Okay, we'll see it then. Oh, who did I miss? Oh, sir. Yeah, well, I should be looking at my screen. Councillor Donnie Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Do we know what the cost are? Councillor Boyles is talking about how often they gotta come pump these. What's our annual cost to do that, to do all that pumping? Do we have any idea what that is?
Yeah, thank you for the question, through you, Mr. Chair. We have an idea of the cost for the way that it's coded in our financial system is that we keep it all together for the pumping that goes to the Trenton treatment plant. So whether we're in Hillside or we're in Lynasea or Alma, or all the areas that go towards that Eric treatment plant. So we're able to go back and, you know, it's just oftentimes when we send out for the pumper trucks to come, they're coming to Hillside, but then immediately afterwards they're going to Abercrombie, or they're going somewhere else that also plays into the system. So we haven't broken out those that go to the Trenton treatment facility, the Eric treatment facility. And we see that has ranged from as high as just over $80,000 in the 2022-23 fiscal year to as low as $12,662 in the 2024-25 fiscal year. Again, some of that is due to things like hurricanes, and some of that's due to things like that major snowstorm, these types of things. We also believe that the purchase of this mobile generator is going to help as far as power outages go that result in needing additional pumping. But that gives you an idea, hopefully, of the range. But we do see the trend going down. But as Councillor Boyles mentioned, it is still a lot of money in any given year.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Look at my screen here, and I see Deputy Warden Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. In Councillor Boyle's action plan, the staff be directed to provide council with an update and plan to address the ongoing operation issues at the Hillside Plumbing Station. I know you just explained that to us. Could we have that in writing of some sort so we can understand it better?
Certainly, we can get that to council. Yep.
Okay.
Is that all right as agreement? We need a motion?
No, I think you just need agreement to get more information, get the information in writing, not necessarily more information.
Thank you.
Okay, that's agreed, and Councillor Darla McKeel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warden. Through to Logan, through your comments of saying that they're leaving, these pumper trucks are leaving Lynacy and they're going to Abercrombie or different places. Is our infrastructure, there seems to be a lot of failing? Would that be correct? And if so, would there be beneficial, I mean, I would like to know as a counselor, what infrastructure needs replacement and what the roadmap looks for that. Would it be a good idea to do an audit on that infrastructure for the county so us councillors can understand, maybe A, help us plan for capital budgets in the future, but also understand what our current logistics are. I feel that I'd like to know more. I don't know if any other councillors around here, but I'd like to understand that more, and I feel that I guess my two questions would be, would an audit be helpful with that? I guess that'd be my first question to you.
Excuse me. Thank you, Councillor McKeel, and through you, Mr. Chair. We can certainly provide a breakdown of the areas that we currently have challenges. And to your point, it's a great question because Council had approved improvements to a number of these lift stations that we have been completing over the past couple of years as well. Things like replacing, we still have some stations that only have one pump functioning. They're meant to have two, one, and then sort of a relief pump, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
We've done a lot of those replacements. It's an ongoing effort that we look to get improved. So it's identified when the capital budget comes to municipal council, things like lift station improvements are often sort of lumped together to say, we're going to do however many or however much work in terms of these lift stations, but we could probably break it out in a way that councillors can see, we're going to look at this lift station, that lift station in any given year. I'd say the system, again, we've been, since I've been here, certainly we've been making improvements in the functionality of different lift stations. It remains an ongoing effort, but I think that plays into the reductions that we see overall in our overall system, not just in the areas that flow into the air treatment plant, but our other lift stations, our other sewer treatment plants as well. But we can definitely provide a greater breakdown to council so that you understand, where we have deficits currently, and where we have plans to address them, or where we're going to be looking for additional funding to address them.
I think that would be helpful. I don't know if it would be agreeable to council. It's just, we all have projects, I guess. There's projects in certain areas in the county that need to get done. But I think it's important for us councillors at budget time to understand what is coming 3 years ahead, 5 years ahead, what's going to be coming up in 10 years, so that we can budget accordingly and do things in priority that need to be taken care of. So for me, I think if it's agreed to everyone around the table that if we can move forward with having something that that we can understand our infrastructure on a I don't know if it's a committee of the whole night or a separate item some night, that we can look at our infrastructure and see the deficits and the improvements, that would be greatly appreciated for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McKeel and Councillor Boyles. If you finish this one off.
Yeah, all this I'd like to see too is that break down the sites. Like, okay, when we say, how much it costs us for Trenton for pumper trucks? Bingo, they'd be able to say this much, or Lynacy this much, or Abercrombie this much. And it shouldn't be a hard thing to do because they're getting billed from that site. So it's just a matter of turn around and I think it's something we should have, and then it shows how much. When you clump it all together, well, yeah, we're paying this much for all these sites, but I'm telling you, Hillside is when there's a storm or anything going on, we've got trucks there, and I don't know where they're going afterwards. I don't know why they go anywhere after the storm's over, and we turn around and we've had trucks continuously just pumping up and taking off, pumping up, and then going up by the car works to dump them. So, I think that we should have a formula that tells each station, and then we have a better picture of what it's costing us each station.
Okay, thank you. So I think we've covered that one. We're going to move on to your second concern then, Peter, the Nova Scotia Power outage concerns.
Been seeing on the Facebook, hearing from people and everyone saying that that the outage was deliberately done.
This is that outage in the middle of the afternoon?
Yes,
Part of the county?
yes, and it's the same day that the RCMP raided the Pictou landing to turn around and go into the dope stores or whatever they call them down there. But anyway, it's been on. The natives have been saying it was caused by the RCMP putting it off. There's the rumor around. I'd just like to try and find out for sure if that was the case, that they just put off all, pretty well all Pictou County off or something like that, then there's something desperately wrong, because they put a lot of people in a lot of harm's way with no power, and it just brings me to Trenton when they had the crisis there on a gentleman had a house and that and everything, and they cut the power down, but only to that that certain area, and they had the thing to do that. So I just think it'd be something that we should check in to see. If it was something else, then great. We turn around, we show that no, that it wasn't just for them to do a raid, or if it is for them because they got permission for doing this raid, then that's a no-no. I mean, that's putting people's lives in jeopardy, and it would have to be stopped.
So we don't know for sure that that's the case.
Well, I'd like to, make a motion that we turn around and send a letter to the Nova Scotia Power and to the maybe to the RCMP themselves to see if there was an order given from the RCMP and Nova Scotia Power. Were they directed to cut that power, or was there another reason for it? And we find there's another reason, well, good. Then we can turn around and straighten the matter out, and then it's done.
We do have a police advisory board, and Councillor Bailey, you're the chair of that? No? Or Councillor Palmer, sorry. So could we not bring that up, that matter?
Meeting next week.
Next week is the meeting, so that would be the obvious place to bring it up with them.
Mr. Chair, I could speak to this issue a little bit, actually, because I was dealing with it through EMO. I reached out to the superintendent, Dion Antle with Nova Scotia Power. We had the discussion about this outage. This outage was caused at a substation adjacent to the Trenton Power Plant. It was caused by a failed insulator on a line. And he did send me photos of the damage and the repair that I could provide anybody that's interested. But he did confirm it had nothing to do with those attempted inspections in the First Nations communities.
So whatever it was, it took everything right out.
12,000 people, 12,000 customers, yeah. It was one of the main feeders that fed that side of the county, but it's a large insulator. And like I said, I do have photos of it here. You can see it burnt up, and the repaired piece as well that I could share. But
there's only one question I have for that then, and I'd like it answered if you could find out, Evan, is why did certain ones get back on at certain times? If that was supposed to be an insulator that went, and they replaced that insulator, we all should have got our power back at the same time. We didn't.
So I did ask that question as well. It had to do with surging in the line that tripped some of the other feeders as you went down the line. So in the email, he says there was 12,000 customers. They were able to react quickly, restore most of the customers around 4 p.m. with the rest of the customers in Marigamish getting restored around 6 p.m. or so. And that was due to surging in. When that was damaged, it surged the lines and blew breakers along that line. And so as they worked their way out through the outage, they had to flip people back on. And that's why you saw that tiered response coming back on.
And that came from Dion, did it?
Yeah, Dion Antle, yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay. Thank you.
That settles that one. I'm glad you spoke up with that information for us, Evan. So we'll move on to your third concern, the police costs related to the unlicensed dispensaries. Go ahead, Councillor Boyles.
Yeah, I'm going to drop that one because what I was told, that somebody asked me to find out because they were told, it was costing us about $10,000 every time you go down there. But now, after seeing them demolishing cars and taking tires, I mean, it's just cost them a lot more. So I'll just drop that one right now.
Okay, thank you. So the next two items are ones that I asked to be put on, so I'm going to ask Deputy Warden Murray to take the chair, so I'll be able to speak openly on those two.
Okay, Mr. Warden, go ahead, sir.
Okay, so the first one has to do with our ferry from Caribou over to Wood Islands. And in the recent budget, the federal budget, it was announced that the new boat, that we've been promised many years ago for, I believe it was 2028, it was supposed to be ready, has now been dropped. It's not on the list at all. It wasn't given a new date down the road, it was just dropped. And so I went into our MP's office, Sean Fraser. I didn't get to talk to him directly, but I talked to his assistant. And she said, basically just verified that it was dropped. She was going to send me some information, but either I didn't see it or she didn't send it. I'm not sure what happened there, but I think we have enough information to know that the case is that boat may never be built. We've received 2 different second-hand boats, I think, over the last 2 or 3 years, and they've been a disaster in a way. Last summer, when the water got low enough or whatever, it wasn't dredged or whatever, so the boat couldn't dock. And we had sent a letter, and I sent it out to all councillors, or asked So-Ann to a copy of the letter we sent about 2 years ago, because Anita Anand was the federal minister of transportation at the time, and she sent us a letter back very much agreeing that the service had been subpar and that they would make sure that there was 2 ferries on duty all the time. Well, last year, I think it was the 1st of July before that second ferry was ready. And we had asked in our letter to them that there be 2 ferries from early May, whenever the ferry opens, there be 2 ferries ready to sail. Because when the Confederation breaks down and the other one's still in dry dock somewhere, then we got no service again. And we went through a spell 2 years ago, I think it was in the fall. I remember seeing the big sign on the Transcan out there just saying, don't go this way, there is no ferry. So we went without service, and that's vital to some people. It saves some time, for sure, to drive around. It's an inconvenience, but it's vital to the people who depend on it for their living. And in order to, the big one that people think of is tourism, of course, because as soon as you stop the flow coming off that boat, you stop a lot of flow coming into this county. And so it's important to them, but it's also important to the trucking industry for sure. I was down there planting plants for them over 10 years ago or something. I was just amazed at the constant flow of trucks both ways, whether they be hauling potatoes or hauling gravel or hauling lumber, logs, whatever. It's a main corridor, and my fear is that if we let them, they announced this and there didn't seem to be much fanfare or much even people complaining about it. Just seemed to be accepted. And my fear is if we simply accept it, well, it sends a message that maybe we don't need to spend that money on another boat. Maybe we can just kind of gradually say, well, you can go by the bridge. The bridge is there. But what the piece I sent out, I also mentioned about safety. What if anything ever happened to that bridge? And we've already phased out the ferry. And it's not impossible. We saw what happened down in, I think it was Baltimore, somewhere down in the States anyway. A big boat ran into one of the pillars. Well, you couldn't go across the bridge for the next 6 months or a year. I'm not saying that'll ever happen here, but we have lots of ice and lots of boats around and stuff. It could. So what I'm requesting, and I'll make a motion, that we send a letter to the Federal Minister of Transportation. I'm not just sure who that is right now, and to be copied to our local MP, John Fraser, and to the Premier of Prince Edward Island, and to our local MLA, and I'm going to add to that list, and I don't know who the MP is on cabinet from PEI, there's usually one, I don't know the name again, but I think it should go to that person, that he or she as well. And basically asking them to give us a date, one they're going to stick to. And I'm sure that's why they're not giving us a date, because there's not a great big plan to stick to it. But give us a date when that ferry will be built. And what was the other part of that motion? I forget now, but I had it written down there. To give us a date on that. Just 1 second. Yeah. Oh, yeah, and reaffirm council's strong support for the continuation and improvement, not just continuation. We don't want to continue the way it's been the last 2 or 3 years. Continuation and improvement of the service. So not only do we want the boat to be built, that would at least, if they give us a date, at least it gives us a feeling that they're actually planning on doing it, although 2028 didn't add up to a whole lot. But the date and our strong support for that ferry to keep operating, it's really important to this county, I believe, that ferry keep operating, and it's important for all those other reasons that I pointed out. So I will make that motion and ask for a seconder.
So seconded. Regularly moved and seconded. Any questions on the motion?
No.
Go ahead, Councilor McKeel.
Thank you very much, Deputy Warden. I second everything the warden said there. I see the ferry traffic every day, and it is amazing how many trucks and goods pass through that gateway. We forget that that gateway is the second only after the airport in Nova Scotia for amount of passengers that travel through. And while we usually associate the ferry with tourism, it is absolutely vital to tourism in Pictou County. If summers where that boat has been broken down and we've had extended periods of time without that ferry being in operation, it is very noticeable in Pictou County that those passengers are not here. So yes, very important to tourism, but also the movement of goods. There are many business owners within our county that rely on that ferry for their movement of their goods and their business and supporting their families. So it's very important. And likewise in Prince Edward Island. We're coming up to a very busy time here on the Northumberland Strait with the opening of lobster season. And, it's vital that that boat be in the water, 2 of them, and that we're able to can have that continued service, but also a quality service that is reliable and is cost effective. So I, like I said, second that motion, and I hope that council sees the value in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Darla. Next is Andy. Councilor Thompson.
Thank you. I can't support this motion, sending this letter, and it's not because I don't support the ferry. It's because I think it's the motion's predicated on not all the correct information, I guess. I reached out to the MP's office when I received their package because I was surprised to read that the ferry service might be in jeopardy. So I asked for clarification, and this is what I received from MP Sean Fraser's office. Budget 2019 committed funding for 2 new ferries for the Caribou Wood Islands route. Due to significant cost escalations, $1 billion for 1 single vessel, the project is not feasible at this time, noting it is not canceled. Government is shifting to a phased service continuity approach while pausing new vessel procurement. New ferry procurement, again, it's not dropped, it's paused for 5 years. And that's the service continuity measures to this, renewed for 5 years, funding for, service continuity measures is maintain 2 vessel service, no change, and they're chartering the MV Saramia for a Quebec vessel as a standby backup. It will be available during peak seasons, ensures rapid replacement if 1 vessel goes offline. Again, the Ferry Services Contribution Program is renewed for 5 years. The funding is $167 million. and that provides operational stability across Atlantic ferry services. The announcement will be coming soon on terminal infrastructure for both sides. So they're working on it, and I think it's important that we share a positive. We got to be more positive about our ferry service, because if people are watching this on YouTube, we have media here, and if the headline in the paper is ferry service is going to shut down, that creates a ripple effect for the operators and the federal government who's funding this. So I don't think it's a worthy letter to send in its present form. I would be open to some change to it, and I might consider supporting it, but I can't support it now because the federal government has they put it out there for bids, came back high, so they had to come up with a plan B. Their plan B was the 2 boats plus the additional standby boat. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. It wasn't dropped, it was paused.
Thank you, Andy. Darla?
Thank you very much, Deputy Warden. And I appreciate that, your comments, Councillor Thompson, because I think it's, I understand that it's a pause. I understand that it's not canceled, but in my experience, anything that's paused in the government usually doesn't come back. And while I understand that it came back at a very expensive price tag, it is about priorities. And whether we have to make sure that this is a priority for the federal government. I believe that, unfortunately, there seems to be money for many other things. We have to make sure that there's money for this, and that this is a priority for the federal government, for MP Sean Fraser. And I think our motion is stressing how important it is to our area. And so again, I'm in full support of that, and hopefully this is a priority going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Darla. Warden Parker?
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Well, I accept that that's how it came about, that the price is too high, therefore we have to put it off, call it a pause, whatever. If we don't speak up, and this goes the way it's going, it will show the federal government that, there's not a lot of concern. It's the way I'm seeing it anyway. There's not a lot of concern because we didn't hear from a lot of people. And I agree with Councillor McKeel that sometimes a pause can grow into a long pause. And I think this letter that we're going to send is simply to send the message to the federal government that we're watching and we want this service to continue. And if they're going to continue it, that's fine. But in the meantime, the service has not been good for the last 3 years. And it's turned some people off to the point where they're going the other way anyway, just because of the poor service. So I think the message here is that we're watching and that the service has not been good for 3 years in a row, despite what Minister Anand promised us with the last letter. And that the second part of the motion is that we're in strong support of that ferry remaining here. Not that there's anybody saying it's going to leave, but it could leave. Someday the pressure will come, different pressures, and it might be that if they think, well, we didn't get a lot of resistance when we took it around the first time, well, we might be able to get away with it. So I think it's our job as a council not just to accept everything that another level of government says. I think we need to send our message strongly that we are in favor of this ferry continuing, and we are afraid of what could happen. Not that it's happening, but what could happen. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Warden. Brian, can you turn on my mic, please? Okay. No further discussion. Everyone in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary-minded? Nay. One nay. Councillor Thompson. Thank you. We'll move on now to item 11-12. Concerns regarding changes to the Forestry Act, Bill 198, Clause 60, and Warden Parker.
Okay, this one I'm not as familiar with, but I was asked by a resident of District 6 to bring it up, and it was in the latest provincial budget, this one, and it has to do with Forestry Act, and Matt Miller, who lives in Green Hill, just up above the Green Hill Spring, is a forester who works in the forest industry all the time, and his father, Tom, was also very involved for all of his career here in the forest industry. More of an ecological forester, I guess you'd call him. But, so their concern in the new, what number was that, Bill?
60.
Bill 60, requires, Bill 198, okay, Clause 60. Requires an owner of forest property being used in a commercial carbon sequestration transaction to file a report with the minister. Authorizes the minister to share the report or information contained in the report with certain other parties. Authorizes the minister to direct an owner of forest property to disclose whether the property is being used in a commercial carbon sequestration transaction, and if so, to direct the property owner to file the required report. So Matt's concern is that the provincial government, in this case, could require the owner of any forest property in order to get the preferential tax treatment. We know that it's, what is it, 1 cent an acre? 25, I was getting by cheaper. 25 cents an acre. In order to qualify for that lower tax rate, that they might be going to say, well, you have to be producing commercial wood off of your lot. Now, they're not saying that right now, but they are on carbon sequestration saying, according to Matt, that would go to the taxation people, and you would not qualify as forestry if your land is being used for carbon sequestration. And his point is that you should be able to choose what you want to use your forest for. If you want to cut logs and pulpwood and whatnot, to harvest your wood, you should be able to do that. But if you want to, help the environment by keeping the trees standing and provide what's called sequestration, and those, your money out of that doesn't come from selling it to the sawmill in Scottsburn or to any other mill. Your money is you can then sell those points or whatever they're called to somebody who has a need for points because of the pollution that they're creating. So that's the way the system works. But his point is that you should have a choice, and if you want to use your woodland just for a park for yourself, your neighbors, your family, or for trails, you should be able to do that and still class as forestry, not that the government can tell you that unless you're producing logs and pulp, well, then you can't get that lower rate. And he's really not talking about the other uses right now. It's just this carbon sequestration that I wouldn't have known anything about. I didn't even know it existed if Matt hadn't got a hold of me. So after I talked to him, there was a phone, with the online meeting anyway, with Paul LaFleche, who's is he the deputy for our municipal affairs? Yeah, he's the deputy minister of municipal affairs. And so I asked him the question because I just heard from Matt a couple nights before on this, and he said, "Oh no, nothing to worry about. That's just for the big fellas. That's for some of the big fellas that own all kinds of land in Nova Scotia, And I said, will it apply then to the little people? All the people that might own 50, 70, 20 acres of forest? Well, that's being worked on. Paul's pretty flippant. That's being worked on. And so as far as I know, nothing's changed, that it doesn't just apply to the big fellows, but maybe something has changed. But I would make a motion that we send a letter to the appropriate provincial ministers and also to our local MLA, Marco McLeod, wanting clarification of Clause 60 of, what was the number of the bill, 180? 198. Whether the carbon sequestration new rules, if they're going to apply, Is there an exemption for the small woodlot owners, smaller woodlot owners?
We have a seconder for that motion. Second by Councillor Don Parker. Any questions on the motion? Councillor Dewar.
Send one to the Premier, he represents East Pictou.
That's right, yeah.
Thank you.
Send one to the ministers and the Premier.
Any further questions? Hearing none, everyone in favor, say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, motion is carried.
Thank you.
Back over to you, sir.
Thank you. So the next item on our agenda is Dean's, our tourism people. They're having their gala event. Can you remind us of the date for that? Oh, too hard a question. So coming up next week even, well, a week from tonight will be the 14th. Yeah, so it's a Thursday of next week then. So you're just looking on who. Oh, I'll be there, so that's one more. Wait till the morning, I'll check with you, in case you get home and find out there's something else on. I don't think there is. You have to let her know by when?
I have to let her know tomorrow, so you can just
Okay,
get in touch with me in
I'll
the
check
morning.
in with you in the
Yep.
morning, just to make
Okay.
sure that's open. That's it. Would it be 7? Or 6? 5:30 to start at 6? Okay, at the Wellness Center. 5:30 for 6. Wellness Center, okay. So, any further, yeah, put a reminder on our machines. Okay, no more questions on that. We have a total of 6 right now then. So, under deferred business, and I guess this one just stays there, I was told before, the Dreamery Gardens project tax receipts. That's just there as a holding spot, so there's nothing to do about that one. Do we have any motions of reconsideration? Don't see any. And what about community announcements? Is there any community announcement? Go ahead, Councillor Boyles.
Yeah, I'd just like to remind everyone that we have the jam session at the Hillside Community Hall every Friday night from 6:30 to 9, where the players are admitted free, and it's $5 to get in, and you're provided a lunch, and it's really going over well, so it's a good time. Thank you.
$5 is a pretty cheap lunch, isn't it? Okay, other community announcements. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
The Lismore Community Center is having our annual salmon supper on the 12th of April, 4 to 6. Eat in or take out is available. You can takeout orders should be pre-arranged. And on April 18th in Lismore, I guess not the Culloden annual walk, and there will be a meal after that at the Lismore Community Center.
So April 18th was the Culloden Walk?
Yes, at 10:45.
10:45. And the other was the salmon supper, 4 to 6.
Yes.
That was what date?
The 12th.
April 12th, this is the 7th. Must be the Saturday, okay. All right, any more community announcements? Go ahead, Darla.
Thank you very much. Mine's not so much as an announcement, but a well wish. I'd like to wish all the fishers at the end of the month a very safe and bountiful season, those setting their traps along our North Shore. And yeah, I just wish all the fishers and the fisher families and a really great season. Yeah, a good season, so yeah.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McKeel, and now we have Councillor Wadden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is not a community announcement, but I just come up my news feed that President Trump has agreed to a 2-week ceasefire with Iran, and Israel has agreed. So I've been sitting here worrying all night, waiting for
the vote.
yeah. So, anyways, I just came across my feed, so I am relieved to hear that for 2 weeks. Anyways, thank you.
Good to hear we breathe for another 2 weeks. Okay, are there any further community announcements this evening? Okay, hearing none, we have some in-camera items we have to discuss, so I'm looking for a motion to go in-camera, please.
So,
Moved by Councillor McKeel and seconded by Councillor Boyles. Okay, all those in favor?
aye.
Against, motion carried. So we'll have to ask everybody to leave.